What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of 100 Yards Football Sports Talk Radio. Now, normally you hear us talking about NFL draft prospects and game previews and stuff along those lines, but we are really deep right now in the free agent trenches. So, here over the next couple of days, we're going to be looking at all the free agency moves. We're going to have more of a bigger overview tomorrow and on Thursday. But for today, on the Tuesday edition of the show, we're just going to look at what else happened today so far as of 5:16 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as a little timestamp. That's where we're at. So we're just going to give you a brief overview of what all has happened in the last 12 or so hours. So join me here today to give his reactions and to talk about all these is Brian LeBel. Brian, how's it going this afternoon, man? It's free agent season, and my God, has it been busy?
Yeah, a little less busy today than it has been, but still some significant signings and still a lot of guys finding new homes. More staying put today, I think. It was kind of 50-50. So I mean teams are getting their second and third and fourth choices now. That's kind of where we're at.
Yep. And so what we'll do is we'll just give a couple of guys, just say who they are, where they signed to, terms of the contract, and Brian, myself, will just give a brief thought of if it's a good move, if it's the right fit, and all with that good nature there. So up first, broke it around 8 o'clock this morning, early up. People are still waking up, getting their breakfast. Defensive tackle Jonathan Taylor, or excuse me, Jonathan Allen. He is leaving the Washington Commanders. He is now going up north to the Minnesota Vikings on a 3-year, $60 million deal. We also have safety Javon Holland signing with the New York Jets. Terms of that deal, it's going to be a 3-year, $45 million deal. He's leaving the Miami Dolphins. And we are also going to talk about Ifeatu Milanofo. He has signed a 1-year, $4 million deal with the Dolphins. So the Dolphins, they lost Holland, and they're going to replace him there with Ifeatu there with the line. So Brian, what are your thoughts on just those three signings there? Obviously, the big one in that bunch is going to be Jonathan Allen heading out to the Minnesota Vikings for 3 years at $60 million.
I mean the Vikings already have a pretty solid defense. I think they got a little bit better, which is they got a good coaching staff up there for the defensive unit too. I mean we've seen it over the last year really. Darnold played good, he played good enough to win, but that defense carried him. Justin Jefferson's numbers were down a little bit. They couldn't run the ball as well, but it's kind of a instance where they've handled the salary cap really well. They got the big names paid. If JJ McCarthy works out, they can pump all this money in the defense. They were a playoff team last year. Obviously they didn't really end too well for them. But I mean, the defense was a huge part in what they were trying to do, and I think it's a great thing for a young quarterback to have a reliable defense who he knows can shut teams down on the other end because he's more comfortable. He's less walking on eggshells, so to speak, because he knows that he can make a mistake, and those 11 guys on the other side of the football have his back. So I think this helps everybody. I think Minnesota's got to be thrilled.
Yeah, and obviously Minnesota, they kept dealing today. They
Yeah.
bulked up the D line there. Now we're going to switch it up to the offensive line. They have signed guard Will Freeze to a 5-year, $88 million contract. He's only 26. He spent the first 4 years of his career with Indianapolis. He did, interesting note though, he did miss the last 12 games of last season after fracturing his right tibia. So big offensive lineman off the board there. It's also came out that it looks like Javon Hargrave is going to sign with the Vikings once he is granted his release from San Francisco tomorrow. So it looks like they're going to be picking up the veteran there. And no, of course, former Viking Daniel Jones is going to the Colts. It seems so. That's going to be interesting to see. So the Vikings just kind of keep wheeling and dealing, and Brian Daniel Jones has another new home.
Yeah, I think this is if you're Indianapolis, I don't want to panic yet because you still Anthony Richardson is still very young, but based on what I've seen, there's games where the first half he'll look like maybe the best quarterback in the world, and I'll say, oh my gosh, he's got 70 rushing yards, he's got 130 passing yards at halftime, he's got 2 touchdowns, they're rolling, and then you check the stats at the end of the third quarter, he's still got 135 passing yards, he's got 72 rushing yards, now he's got 2 interceptions. It's that or he's hurt, and it's just been very, very frustrating for the Colts because we knew he was a raw prospect, obviously. You look at the arm strength, you look at what he's able to do, you look at his size, that's sort of what you're going off, and hopefully you could develop in. But going into year 3, we're kind of getting to where, okay, now I need to start seeing something, and Daniel Jones is your contingency. There's not really a lot of other options, a lot of great ones at least, but if anything goes wrong, Indianapolis, Daniel Jones is your guy. If Anthony Richardson starts struggling or he gets hurt again, it's the Daniel Jones show.
Yep, and it's only going to be maybe a short run. He only signed for 1 year for $14 million, but they've already said there's going to be a competition. So
Yeah,
Anthony Richardson, hey, it's time to put up or shut up. Now's the
yeah,
time. A lot of fans in Indy think you rubbed them the wrong way, and now you get to prove, hey, this is my team, in a little bit of competition, which is always nice to see. So we'll see what happens. They did have a trade today, also, Brian. The Philadelphia Eagles, their defense, they just we're not surprised, but it feels like it's just been happening one after another. They
yeah.
actually made a trade with the Houston Texans. They're going to be trading C.J. Gardner-Johnson to Houston in exchange for guard Kenyon Green, as well as some draft picks being switched over there. So that's going to be, Houston has made some moves on defense this year, and they're trying to just kind of bulk up after a kind of a rough this past season where guys were hurt, and they're trying to just kind of bulk up. A couple other signings here. Buccaneers signed former Broncos punter Riley Dixon to a 2-year, $6 million contract. Got to show some love to the punters and kickers out there. See cornerback Christian Fulton. He is leaving the Los Angeles Chargers, now heading to the rivals in the Kansas City Chiefs. Terms of that deal, 2-year, $20 million. And we'll just go with this one here. The Panthers announced at 12:30 today that they are releasing running back Miles Sanders, who is 27 right now, played in 11 games last year, only 205 yards on the ground. So, Brian, any thoughts on those pickups there that we just spoke about?
I think the biggest shocker would be the Miles Sanders, because I mean he was top of the world 2-3 years ago.
Yep.
He was rolling, and now Carolina has two better running backs in that running back room. So this is not a surprise, but a lot of depth stuff at this point. Teams are like, hey, we need to fill a hole, and if there's guys available to do that, we'll maybe move some money around and make it work. But I don't. It's hard to the Miles Sanders thing. It's hard to wrap my head around him because I watched him play. Obviously, watching the Falcons, and he just I don't know. It's hard to describe. Because you talk about hitting a wall, but it was just kind of it seemed like something else. It almost looked like he wasn't fully there. Whether it's the mental side, I know Carolina struggled a lot, so you're gonna have, it's hard to be motivated sometimes on a bad football team. That was a bad football team for a while, but kind of crazy to see where he was and where he is now.
Yeah, tough call on that one, and we'll see maybe a change of scenery can amp up his production once more. Some other signings we've had today: the Houston Texans, they've signed guard Laken Tomlinson to a 1-year, $4.25 million contract there. He's 32, played 10 years. He's a veteran. They're hoping that he can help out C.J. Stroud and company. The Washington Commanders have added safety Will Harris to the secondary, 2-year deal for $8 million. He was with New Orleans for the first 5 years of his career. He was there last year. He spent his first 5 in Detroit, rather. And Mario Edwards Jr., he's going back to the Houston Texans, 2-year deal for $9.5 million with that one. And also another one, too, the 49ers have released defensive end Leonard Floyd. So San Francisco, man, it feels like they're just maybe retooling. I don't know what's going on in the Bay Area. I know that they've had some cap issues. There's always the talks of how much we're going to sign Brock Purdy for, but I mean, this looks like a completely new team heading into 25, and obviously you get rid of Leonard Floyd, who's been there for a little bit of time now, and it just seems like the 49ers they've lost more guys than they've gained this year.
Yeah, they're gonna have to have one heck of a draft class because they lost Hufanga as well. I mean, they've lost a
Yep.
lot of talent, and I guess that's the trade-off because you're like, look, we have probably one of the 15, 12 best quarterbacks in the league. I really like Brock Purdy. You give him tip your cap to him because he took him to a Super Bowl, right? I mean, the offense was really good. He's got a lot of talent, but there's a lot of teams that have a lot of talent that, don't make it to the playoffs or don't get out of the first round. And he was able to come in calm, cool, and collected, Mr. Relevant. We talk about it all the time. And he won games for him. I mean, we heard I know Al Michaels, they had a Thursday night game, and I know Chris Collinsworth on the Sunday night game. I mean, every other comment was Purdy's only making 900,000. I don't even know how he's
Yeah.
surviving out here on that. My goodness. So we knew at some point, hey, it's time to pay the piper. If you're San Francisco, I think they just would rather have 1 or 2 Lombardis in the trophy case before this came to be. I think that was the whole plan. Especially now because your question mark with like Christian McCaffrey, is he going to be good this year
Mm-hmm.
going forward? Because I think they still have 2 more years on the books with him. So, I mean, he's another guy. If he struggles, he could be a cap casualty maybe next year after, who knows? But
Yeah.
yeah, you got to clear space, man. You got to pay your top quarterbacks, and that's it's time to do it. And that's why you lose a lot of talent though. You lose 5 or 6 guys on the defensive side.
Mhm.
It sucks. But hopefully they can. If John Lynch has a great draft, maybe you can retool and you can get back to where you were.
Yeah, we'll see what San Fran can do. Back to the signings today. Cleveland Browns have signed Joe Tryon Suyonka, 1 year deal, 4.75. Cowboys, they have made Cavante Turpin the highest paid special teamer in the NFL. 3 year deal for $18 million. Two-time Pro Bowler, staying out in Dallas. The Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu, he has restructured his contract to stay with the Saints, and he's going to be making around 7.2 million this next season. He's initially going to get 13.75, but we know that like I said, you're just talking about salary cap, and I think that the New Orleans
Right.
Saints were kind of the poster child for teams that need to shed salary. So they restructured the deal with Tyrann Mathieu. So what are your thoughts on really that one, and also Cavante Turpin, a guy who we've seen lightning fast speed? He's now going to stay in Dallas for a couple more seasons as their special teams unit guy.
I like Turpin a lot. He does a little bit of everything for them. He's a gadget player. He can do offense as well. They can put him at running back. They can use him in jet sweep kind of stuff. You can, the screen game. He's a phenomenal guy on special teams, both the receiving and the defending side. I mean, he's good. He flies around. He's spectacular. I think. I mean, realistically, because you didn't have C.D. Lamb healthy last year. Micah Parsons was hurt. Dak Prescott, obviously, with everything he's got going on. But he was maybe their most consistent player last year as a
Yeah.
special teamer. So that's why you bring him back. Tyrann Mathieu with the Saints, obviously that's not a surprise. They gotta create cap space somehow, right? They're still paying back stuff from 3-4 years ago. I think they signed Juwan Johnson back too, so you got to make room to be able
Yep.
to do stuff. Yeah, so I mean that's not surprising, and I don't think Tyrann Mathieu has any desire to hit the open market and go anywhere else. So that makes sense.
Yeah, that's usually the vets are going to be a little bit more open to getting that deal restructured as opposed to the young guys. And for Tyron, he just wants to keep playing. So say, all right,
Yeah.
I'll cut my salary in half to keep playing. So here you go, New Orleans. Here's a late Christmas present. All right, a couple other deals here. We got Brian, pass rusher Anthony Nelson staying with the Buccaneers for a 2 year contract for 10 mil. Patrick Ricard, he is staying with the Baltimore Ravens, 1 year deal there. They say that they want to have him retire as a Raven. So he's staying there for another season. And you just mentioned Juwan Johnson, the tight end for New Orleans Saints. He is sticking around there for a 3 year contract. 30.75 mil is the term for that one. 21.25 mil guaranteed, all in all. So obviously that's a big money signing there for New Orleans. They cleared some cap space, gave it to Juwan Johnson there, in a deal where they hope that he can kind of lead the franchise for a couple more years at the tight end core.
He's very good. He's got great size. He's a everything you'd say. Oh, he's a great red zone target. He is. He's phenomenal in the red zone. This team did not have a ton of receiving. I want to say consistency. You had Shaheed. Olave had the injuries. And Alvin Kamara is. I don't want to say the wheels are falling off, but he's had a lot of carries, man. They've given the football a lot, taking a lot of hits, wear and tear, out of the backfield too. He's probably one of the best in the game at just getting the ball out of the backfield as a receiver and making things happen. But you had to bring him back. I think he was your most consistent player on offense, so that makes a lot of sense. I think Tampa Bay sort of solidifying. I think if I'm not mistaken, I don't know if they've lost anybody yet. They've kind of kept everybody around that was like, hey, listen, we continue to win this division, so let's, if it's not broken, let's not try to fix it. Let's add talent through the draft. Let's keep the guys that we have around, and let's try to repeat next year.
Yeah, and we'll see how Tampa can do and what they continue to add throughout the offseason. A couple other moves here. Zay Jones, he is staying in Arizona, 1 year contract for 4.4 mil. Some news for the Falcons. We saw earlier in the week that some guys have left, but now they are bringing back Mike Hughes, their cornerback, 2 year deal. It's going to be a 3 year deal for $18 million. He spent the last 2 seasons here in Atlanta. And also, Peyton Turner, the former New Orleans Saints, he is going to the Dallas Cowboys, 1 year deal for 3 mil. And the latest news, it seems that the Falcons are going to be signing Leonard Floyd after he, like we just mentioned, he is going to be cut by the 49ers. And it looks like here, Brian, in just the time we've been filming, there is a new addition, and it is New Orleans Saints. They have signed safety Justin Reed from the Kansas City Chiefs. Terms of that deal, 3 years for $31.5 million. So a little bit of late breaking news here on the show if the Saints continue to, like I said, they cut Spain, they cut calorie sap, and now they're signing guys. So, what are your thoughts on those moves? Obviously, you see the Falcons getting involved a little bit here. So, a lot of moves in the NFC South today.
1 year deal with Floyd, high risk, high reward, kind of show me deal, right? Because it's not just show me for them. It's, hey, if you can still play and you show that this year, you showcase it, teams are going to be interested in your services next year and moving forward. Mike Hughes is a phenomenal DB. I think he's the second cornerback right now. I don't know where they put him on the depth chart because they kind of move him around. They have like a nickel guy wherever they want to move him around. He's been phenomenal. I think that's a really good deal to get him for $6 a year. I think New Orleans signing Justin Reed, that's a good move. Justin Reed's a very good safety. He plays very, very well. I hope, being a Falcons fan, he doesn't have a Jesse Bates kind of impact because I'd hate to see something like that with the Saints, but I think he's a great player. Saints are getting good, depending on what Derek Carr can do. And if they can add some depth to this receiver room, I think they could be decent next year and compete in the division.
Yeah, I mean, you see the Saints are loading up after a couple of lackluster years. So they're putting an effort in. You can definitely say that. Tampa's also, we talked about them just a little bit here in just the last couple hours, that they're trying to bring their core back, bring their guys back, and I'm sure they're going to add a couple of pieces here too. And now Atlanta's finally getting involved here. After losing Grady Jarrett and Drew Dahlman, both to the Chicago Bears the other day, which that was a big hit, but like I was mentioning to you pre-show, they felt like they kind of needed to do something today, so the fans wouldn't be outside in pitchforks and everything like that. So they're at least making a couple of moves here in Atlanta. So that's just kind of been a quick overview of what's happened here in the last, since this morning and leading up to this point. I'm sure there's going to be stuff that happens after the show wraps up, but we are going to be doing more shows about it. Both tomorrow as well as on Thursday, kind of giving just a bigger overview of all the signings that have happened. All the bigger name signings, but we just want to come out here today and just do a brief overview of what has happened on today, Tuesday, March the 11th, as of 5:33 now p.m. Brian, thanks for coming on the show, doing a little bit of free agent frenzy here on 100 Yards Football. If you enjoyed the episode, like, follow, share, and subscribe. And until tomorrow, we'll see you guys again on another live episode.